Hi, everybody. We're going to give just a 2 seconds, let people jump on here. There you go, Janet. I promoted you to panelist. Everybody's still trickling in, so I don't want to get started until till that evens out for just a second. Can everybody see the screen okay? Okay, Miss Janet, are you ready to get started?
I am ready. I don't see your screen for some reason.
Okay, let's see how we can fix that. Because it says I'm being paused. So let's stop my sharing and then we'll go back in and share it again. How about now? Can anybody see my screen sharing?
There we go.
There we
Perfect.
go. Okay. Do it that way. And then when you need a next slide, just tell me because it seems if I turn the multiple,
Yeah, that's
it
fine. I can just
doesn't
tell
want to
you.
work. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get us started here. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight for our presentation from Family Matters PTIC and the SLD Project of Illinois. Please remember that Family Matters PTIC is unable to offer CEUs for training participants. Certificates of attendance can be requested by contacting the trainers via email. Family Matters is not a legal service and we cannot provide legal representation in any way. So no information that you receive today from this presentation should be misconstrued as legal representation or a substitution for legal advice. Family Matters, this PowerPoint was developed under a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. However, those contents don't necessarily represent the policies of the U.S. Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement from the federal government.
All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am Janet Flesh from the Illinois SLD Support Project. Go ahead and change.
So just as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available on the Family Matters website following the presentation, probably Monday, not going to lie. Please use the chat box to state your name, title, or organization that you're affiliated with. Please try to put all your questions in the Q&A box. We will address those questions at the end of the presentation if time allows. Please help us by completing the brief survey you'll receive following today's presentation. And a copy of the presentation slides are listed in the chat through the Google Drive. And there's also a lot of handouts I found that I thought might be useful to tonight that are in that Google Drive as well. So first and foremost, Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center is an educational advocacy helpline. We also hold the state's grant for the Educational Surrogate Parent Training Program. Janet, thank you so much for taking part in that training with us. So that is a way that we help match advocates with students in the state that are within the care of DCFS. So if you have any interest in volunteering for the Educational Surrogate Parent Program and would like more information, please visit our website or email me. Family Matters also holds the Compass training program one time a year, which is a 10-week advocacy training session in which Compass stands for Coaching Others and Mentoring Parents About School Services. Carrie just finished up our yearly DAISY Data Educational Collection Program. So as a way to really understand data and the collection of data and how that pertains to your student's special education plan. We offer several advocacy trainings, much like this one that we're doing tonight. We also have the privilege of working with Zoe and Bridget Brown. They are two self advocates that post a monthly self advocacy vlog. We have quarterly newsletters and a transition news blast, which focuses on transition related services for our transition age students. And most recently this year, we have started launching a monthly podcast. My name is Abby. I'm over here on the left, and I am an educational support coach here at Family Matters. Family Matters employs two full time educational support coaches that provide educational um, support and help with understanding resources in the role in special education to parents.
All right. So again, I'm Janet Flesh. I'm Region 6 Specialist for the Illinois SLD Support Project. And what our project is a federally funded grant project through the Illinois State Board of Education in partnership with Eastern Illinois University and Eastern Illinois Area of Special Education. So our goal is to offer training and resources to meet the educational needs of all students with specific learning disabilities, aiming to increase those math and reading skills and decreasing achievement gaps by expanding upon the development of previous training materials to address that specially designed instruction for those students. Okay, next slide. Go ahead, next one. I'm ahead. So the next one will show who I am. Again, Region 6 Specialist. We have 6 regions for the project, and Region 6 is the southernmost region. I am living in Marion and have a family, 2 boys, and have been in special education for several years. 14 years as a special education teacher and 11 years as an administrator. And I'm happy to be part of this project that offers resources through the state of Illinois. All right.
Got to remember to unmute myself, guys. Sorry. So tonight we have a lot of material to cover, almost 100 slides to cover tonight. So our focus today is going to be understanding what special education is. We're going to touch on child find, a referral and evaluation process, eligibility categories, what are IEPs, the least restricted environment, and prior written notice. So we're going to review the steps in the special education process, list 4 key terms to understand as you start the special education process, explore the ISB Parent Guide as a key resource, define the difference between screening and evaluation, understand the role of an IEP team members, review important timelines, and describe the differences between accommodations and modification. So this particular training is a very condensed version of what my ESPs take as training, and Janet can let you know that that training can last up to 6 hours where you get to hear me talk and talk and talk and talk. So some of these things we'll be going over relatively quickly, and then of course our focus tonight is on specific learning disabilities, which as a parent of a student with a specific, 2 different students with different specific learning disabilities, this is something that I really have valued this information as a parent to help advocate for my child. So we'll move through this a little quick. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box, and we will try our best to address them at the end of the presentation. So special education, what does it mean? Special education means specifically designed instruction. Special education services are at no cost to the parent, and there's a big misconception there that special education means your school gets extra money for your student. And that is not correct either. In fact, your student gets reimbursed for the services that they provide to your student. Special education means that it meets the needs of a child with a disability. So, in order to receive special education services, you must be a child with a disability that disability impacts their education in some way. And impacts means they're not doing things at peer level or at their classmates without disabilities level. Every few years, the Illinois State Board of Education releases what they call the Parents Guide. The last release was in 2020, literally the month I started working here at Family Matters. So I got to train myself as an educational support coach through the Parent Guide. So rumor has it, we've been told that they are working on the new update to that as we speak. So in the shared Google Drive, which has been shared within the chat, there is a link, then you can have your own copy of the Illinois Parent Guide. Should you like that printed out anyway, please contact our office. Don't use your printer paper. We'll be more than happy to mail that to you. So the first thing we're going to talk about is child find. How do we find children that need services? Well, child find is an ongoing process. Each school district is responsible for identifying students who may need early intervention or special education services. Many districts do that first through screenings, like a preschool screening, or they may use classroom data like the weekly spelling test, or if students are earning their way to that quarterly pizza party. It's a way that we're seeing what students need support in our district, what students are learning at the same rate as their other peers. So, Child Find is just an ongoing process that will take place for every student the day they start school until they are done with school. We are ongoing, we are looking at every aspect of their learning forever. Some students may enter the educational environment knowing that they have a disability or knowing that they have deficits in some areas. And when this happens, that information is shared with the district in some way. It's important to remember that screening and evaluations are different. Screening is a process of reviewing all children in a given group as a set of criteria for the purpose of identifying certain individuals for evaluations who may be in need of special education services. It's done to determine which students are in need of the evaluation. I also want to point out that even students that don't attend the public school in their district are eligible to receive screenings or evaluations through the district if there's a suspicion of a disability or a delay in learning. So at that point, the student would then ask for an evaluation by the home district or their zoned school, depending on what you call it. Evaluations are different than screenings because they are done to determine if a child has a disability and requires special education services. So they're individualized per that child, whereas a screening is done for all students, and evaluation is done by case basis, and those evaluations are individualized or customized for that child. So through the screening process, okay, through those weekly spelling tests and pizza parties, we've determined some students may need extra support. So they're not learning at the same rate as their other peers. Or you may be a parent and have an outside diagnosis that your student has a disability. Maybe your student received early intervention services early on and they have an IFSP or an individualized service plan that you can share with your district. We call this a referral process. It's important to remember anybody that's working with the student on an educational basis can refer a student for evaluation. We see there's a problem. We see there's a lack in learning. Why is the student not succeeding? And we write a formal letter to the district asking for those evaluations. We call this the referral process. Now, on our Family Matters website, there's a link to a shared Google Drive and where we have templates where you can do just this. Write a letter asking for that referral, asking for that evaluation for services based on your concerns, based on your knowledge that your student has a disability, based on the knowledge that your student isn't learning like they're supposed to in the classroom. So it can be made not only by the parent, by another professional working with the student. So sometimes a doctor may write a referral or a counselor, sometimes a teacher, a paraprofessional, a principal, any of those people can write a referral to have for a child to receive services. The evaluation takes place after that referral has been written. So we sit down as a team and discuss the reasons that a student may need an evaluation. We call this a domain meeting, and we talk about the areas in which a student may need to be evaluated for services. It can be decided at this time that a student doesn't need to have an evaluation. Maybe we want to try some other types of intervention called RTI. We're not going to focus a lot on that, and Janet will talk more about that in a minute because RTI is different for our students with specific learning disabilities. But after, let's pretend that we are in agreement that our student needs evaluations. We've gone over the domain areas and we've discussed, does he have problems with academics? Does she have problems with her vision and hearing? Are there health concerns we can share with the team? What is her social emotional learning like? How does he function in school? We're going to talk about all of these areas and as a team determine which of these areas we want to evaluate. These evaluations must be given, there must be consent given by the parent or legal guardian of the student. Okay, so you'll sit down as a team, you'll talk about the areas in which your student needs to be evaluated, and then you will give consent if you agree to those areas to be evaluated or not. Once that consent is signed, the district then has 60 school days. Now, there's some back and forth with special education law. Sometimes we have school days, sometimes we have calendar days, sometimes we have business days. This one is specific that we have 60 school days to complete the evaluation. And the reason why we highlight the 60 school days is because we need time with that student to evaluate them in many, many different ways to get the accurate data. So they can take up to 60 school days. They don't have to take that full time, but it should be somewhere close to make sure the data that we're collecting is accurate for our student. Once all those evaluation results have been collected, you will receive a copy in the mail of those evaluation results, along with a 10-day notice to sit down and talk about an eligibility. We call this an eligibility conference. You'll sit down as a team and you'll go over each of the ways that your student was evaluated and the results associated to that. And it's absolutely okay if you get these results in the mail and they're hard to understand. That's why you have parent centers. You can call and ask for help to understand these evaluations. And there should be a member at that team, that eligibility conference team, that can explain those evaluations to you. It's sometimes hard for professionals in this role to speak a little Greek. We speak a little special ed, is what we call it. And sometimes we use abbreviations, sometimes we use some percentages or and their terminology that we just use every day very fluently and don't realize this other people well, we just don't think when we're saying it. So guess what you get to? You get to say, "Hey, Abby, hush. Okay, you need to slow down because I don't know what LRE is. I don't know what ESY is. I don't want to know what 90% of his fifth percentile is. Yeah, tell me. Tell whoever is at that meeting. Say, can you explain it to me in a way I understand? Okay, we're all great at many, many different things. That particular thing, you're not. You're in the beginning stages of. It's okay to ask them to explain it to you differently. What it will boil down to is Johnny is not learning at the same rate as his other peers. He should be at a fourth grade reading level, but he's still at kindergarten. So it should be put in terms that you can understand these results. Okay? So once the team determines that Johnny has deficits in certain areas, and those areas can be improved when we apply individualized goals, we'll consider him eligible for special education services. And once we consider him eligible, we'll fit him within a category. Now in Illinois, you can be eligible in up to 8 of these 14 categories all at the same time. As a professional, I've never seen more than 3, and I've only actually seen 3 one time in my whole life. All of my children that have IEPs are eligible in more than one category, but you can be eligible in any of these categories. Now, in Illinois, this category here, developmental delay, it's kind of unique to Illinois and a few other states. In order to be eligible under the developmental delay category, you have to be under the age of 9 years old. Okay, because by the time you turn 9, we're going to reevaluate again to fit you in another category to see if you still have the need for services. Now, this is different than that global delay that sometimes people get a diagnosis with, or a developmental disability that you sometimes get a diagnosis with. Developmental delay just means this is this category because the student's still forming and we're not sure exactly where they fit yet. Maybe we don't have some outside data from a doctor. Maybe we don't have a lot of log data with the goals. And this particular category fits this student well. But by the time they're reaching 9, we're going to reevaluate to see if they still have the needs for services and if they fit in another category.
All right, so let's talk about specific learning disabilities. So, if a student is eligible under specific learning disability, what that is a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or using language, spoken or written, which can affect thinking, speaking, reading, writing, spelling, or math. So looking at the next slide, it's going to affect students' listening abilities. Next slide. It's going to affect students' thinking abilities. Next slide. It's going to affect what they're using in language, speaking abilities. It's going to affect how they read and their ability to read. It's going to affect their writing ability. Next slide. And also possibly spelling. Or next slide, you may see this in math and mathematics calculation. So next slide, whether it be in a first grade classroom, a middle school classroom, or high school, we're going to see students that have specific learning disabilities struggling in the classroom. Next slide. So under the umbrella term of specific learning disability, we do have 3 different types of specific learning disabilities that fall under dyslexia. dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. A lot of people mispronounce that, and I probably did that too. And if you need additional information, we're not going to go specifically into each category, but if you'd like specific information about each of these individual specific learning disabilities, jump on our website, sldsupports.org. We have lots of good free on-demand videos, information about those. Okay, next slide. So according to an annual report in Congress, so 2020, they found that 34.9% of students with IEPs, so those that are eligible for special education services, are
Janet
identified.
has frozen.
Am I frozen?
Oh, there you are. You're back. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. Identified as having a specific learning disability. Next slide. In Illinois, in comparison, we see that 32%, so a little bit lower than the average in the country, 32% of students with IEPs in Illinois have been identified with specific learning disabilities. So that's a very large percentage. Next slide. So students with specific learning disabilities do show certain characteristics, and they can fall under the cognitive area, behavioral, and social area. Next slide. So cognitive characteristics, next slide. We do know that intelligence is average to above average. So students cannot be eligible for specific learning disability if they have below average intelligence. Next slide. Students with specific learning disabilities could also have other conditions associated with that. So they call that comorbidity. So about 17 studies were conducted and found that 45%, a little bit more than 45% of students with specific learning disabilities also had ADHD. Okay, next slide. Students with specific learning disabilities have difficulty with both short and long-term memory, which makes it hard for them to retain or keep that information. Next slide. We also see that they have slower processing skills, so that, we can see this in a classroom or at home when you give, directions, and you may state 3 different step directions. They're going to have difficulty processing that pretty quickly, or as quickly as we want them to process. We also may show behavior characteristics. And is that caused by frustration? So is that behavior as a result of their frustration with academics? You may see them shut completely down, act out, forget materials, just to name a few. Okay, and then we also see some social characteristics. Next slide. So we may see depression, and there was a study that was conducted that kind of demonstrated that stress can trigger depression. So if you have a stress related to academic failure or struggling in school, that may lead to depression. You may also have social rejection, so difficulty with friends or developing friends, loneliness. Those can be characteristics of specific learning disabilities. Okay, next slide. So how are we helping them specifically in the school district? So Abby had mentioned the use of MTSS and RTI. So we're using our acronyms. So MTSS is multi-tiered support systems, and RTI is response to intervention, which falls under that. So districts have a system in place to implement scientific or research-based interventions to support our students at different tiers. So the higher the tier 3 is the highest, is the more support a student receives. And as a student goes through an evaluation, we are to look, according to Illinois Administrative Code, we are to look at that information before we can make an eligibility for a specific learning disability. So next slide. And that's what just this says, is that according to Illinois code, we have to ask ourselves, how is a student responding to scientific research-based interventions? And then we have to determine if they are already eligible for that. Based on that information, do they continue to be eligible for specific education or special education services under that SLD category? All right, next slide. So there's advantages to having all of these research-based intervention in place. It's proactive. So schools can identify where students are struggling, and then they can put those interventions in place to address those specific needs. It also encourages schools to use research-based interventions or instruction and evidence-based interventions. And they collect data. So they're constantly collecting data based on student progress. And it's ongoing, it's an ongoing process. So it's not going to stop at a certain level. Okay, next slide. Oh, may have skipped one. Okay, so just to remind everyone that this process, MTSS, that multi-tier support system and the response intervention cannot be used to delay or deny a full and individual evaluation for a child suspected of having a disability. So just as Abby was talking about the referral process, you can still go through that referral process while the student is receiving this RTI MTSS and as the school is collecting the data.
Okay, let's talk more about IEPs or individualized education programs, or if you're old school, you still call it plans like I do. So let's talk about some of those timelines to remember. We talked about before that the school has 60 school days to complete those evaluations, to have that eligibility conference to let you know if your student is going to qualify for an IEP or not. Um, Within that 60 day, at the end of that 60 days is when that eligibility conference happens, and you can actually have your very first IEP meeting at the same time. And many districts prefer to have that way. But in case they don't, you have 10 days after that eligibility conference to have your IEP time, have your first IEP meeting. And the reason is because by law, you are always going to be given a 10-day notice before any type of meeting with the school. That 10-day notice is customizable as well. So if you receive that notice and the school is suggesting a time, date, or place that is not convenient for you, you can absolutely reach back out to the school and let them know that. Please let your reason be justified. Don't let it be, well, I'm going to need to get my hair done on that day. Now, if you've had that hair appointment for 4 months, girl, I get you. You keep that appointment. No, but just try to work with your district as best as possible in a time and place that's convenient for both of you. That 10 days is there to allow you to prepare for the upcoming meeting. And in order to prepare for that meeting, you'll get a draft copy of the proposed IEP at least 3 business days before that meeting. Now, this is different than school days, but at least 3 days before the meeting. So if your meeting's on a Monday, you're going to get that draft IEP Wednesday. If your meeting is on a Friday, you're going to have it by Thursday, or I'm sorry, Tuesday. And so just remember that's new to this parent guide in 2020 that you received those draft IEPs before. So it's a great way to kind of review the information. This is a lot of the times when parents will reach out to Family Matters for what we call a records review to go over the written proposal by the school. So go over those evaluation results, go over any goals the school's suggesting, if your student already had an IEP, the progress that they've made this year. So let's go back and just retrace our steps just a little bit. If you've written a referral and you've asked for an evaluation, the school needs to respond to you within 10 days to schedule that meeting to sit down and talk about why you want an evaluation. The school could also during this time communicate back with you and you both agree that maybe an evaluation isn't needed, but there's that 10-day timeline. Once the meeting is set, which doesn't happen within that first 10 days, it can happen 10 days after that because guess what? You're going to get a conference notice again. They have 60 school days to complete the evaluation after you give consent. After that 60 days is up, you must have the eligibility conference. And after the eligibility conference, you have at least 10 days to have the IEP meeting. You can have them concurrently, but some districts prefer to do that, some don't. So I know that's a lot of timelines. We used to have this really neat circle that showed us, but we lost it in our data, in our transfer, so we need to make a new one. Here is some that talks about in 2020 that 3 school days prior to the meeting. This has been huge for parents to understand and prepare themselves more for meetings, and huge for students as well, our transition age students, as they help to prepare to understand what their plan is and what it means for them. So, an IEP must be reviewed at least 1 time a year. However, a student, a professional working with the student, or a parent can request a meeting at any time that they feel like their student is struggling, isn't making enough progress, maybe making too much progress. You can request that at any time. And parents must be informed of their child's progress goals at least as often as other students are receiving progress of their grades. So today, I think it was today, my school released their progress reports. I can't believe we're there already with the back to school. So I would get little notes about my child's goals. Report cards, I get notes about my child's goals. So at least as often as other students are receiving their grade reports, basically, you will receive notes about the progress of your student's IEP goals. If your student is also receiving RTI intervention, you should also be receiving RTI benchmarks. So they will describe the intervention that they're giving, and then they will describe the student's response to that intervention is. I know we didn't talk a lot about RTI, but again, RTI is it's a series of interventions that your district has found successful in the past, and they're applying that to students. So it may be reading text out loud after it's read as a group. It might be going over math and separating the steps, things like those. An IEP includes, I always like to start a little different. I love when my IEP meetings start with, I like to open it, give it in introductions to everybody, and we talk about one great thing my students accomplished this last year. I might say Ethan made a fantastic Canva presentation about the Titanic this week, and I really see his determination. But it should really start with your student's strengths and everybody introducing yourself and talking about how they're connected with your student. This way, we can all get comfortable with each other. The IEP itself is going to include the present levels of their academic and functional performance, so their grades, how they're learning academically, and how they're functioning in the school. Functioning may include how they're communicating, how they're navigating the school building, what their behavior is, what their executive functioning is, and then, of course, the academic portion might be how they're doing with their grades. It's going to also have annual goals and then progress to those goals and how those progresses will be shared. So in Illinois, not only do we require that big annual goal, but we also require benchmarks, so little steps on how we're going to get to that goal. It's also going to discuss what special education and related services will be provided. So, what type of related services your student may need. Related services are any service given in addition to what the student is learning. So, if your student has showed a delay and in mathematics, he has dyscalculia, sorry. He may get extra math support with a resource teacher. That's considered a related service. We will also going to talk about how your child will access the general education, how much time will he spend with his non-disabled peers. We'll talk about what language or modes of communication in which a special education related services will be provided, other than English if appropriate. And we'll also talk about the accommodations or extras that your student will need, and modifications or way we change what your student's learning and how those will be provided. Assessments are done, of course, and we'll talk about how your student will participate and then the accommodations they'll need in those assessments. Um, we're also going to talk about assistive technology, and assistive technology is huge for our students with specific learning disabilities. So it's very important if your student has an SLD, a specific learning disability, that we talk about what types of assistive technology may help that student. Sometimes with our students with SLD, we really start to notice there's a huge barrier and we can't figure out how to get over it. For my daughter, it was counting money. She really, really struggled with counting money and counting change back. And no matter how many times we put those goals into her IEP, she wasn't making any progress. So I really went to the Think Center. Okay, I contacted a friend of mine at the SLD project, and I thought, okay, she's going to be 18 this year. It's very important that when she goes into a gas station and hands the clerk a $20 bill to pay for a $4.99 hot dog, that she understands what money she's going to get back. and we were able to find this amazing app called Make Change. And it goes right on her iPhone. And she can put in there that I have a hot dog, and she can scan the barcode of the hot dog or the gum or whatever, and it tells her what the price of that is. And then she can put in there what she's paying with it. Okay, so she's paying for a five for $1.99 pack of gum, and it tells her what change she should get back, and then a picture of the notes and a picture of the change. So she can do that independently, and that's been huge for her. And we also then learned that counting money isn't super important anymore. A lot of us are, a cashless society, so she uses her debit card for a lot of things, and we preload money on that debit card, so she can't go ever go over her budget. So assistive technology can be huge for our students with specific learning disabilities. We also talk in the IEP about special training or support for the student that they may need, for the parent, and for the school staff. So if I really want Kira to use that Make Change app, I need to make sure that her teacher and her paraprofessional know how to use it too, and I need to make sure I know how to use it. And we might get some training to figure that out. We see this a lot with communication devices for students. And we're also going to discuss whether the student has a need for extended school year services. Now, extended school year services happen after a student has an IEP and we're measuring the progress towards their goal. We're going to look at the breaks, the gap in services. So it might be for a holiday break, a summer break, it might be for the weekends. We're going to see if the student can maintain progress, if they regress after returning from that break. And if they show that they are doing those things, then we talk about the need for extended school year services. And just like the IEP, the ESY services are very customizable per the student. My student that has dysgraphia has access to his IXL math platform all year long. Now, IXL math has more than math. They have some reading and comprehension stuff on there too. And over summer, he can log in 20 minutes a day and have access to working on his reading and improving his skills. And then the special education coordinator, who is a year-long employee at the district, she doesn't take a summer break, can monitor his progress over the summer. So that's kind of how, extended school year services are very customizable. He doesn't have to go to school every day in the summertime, but he still is learning. He's still working on his goals. By the time our students are turning 14, we're really hammering down and talking about transition. Transition is my favorite thing in the entire world. It is the whole reason I'm in this position. So we really talk about our students with specific learning disabilities and other disabilities and what their life after high school may look like. So our students with SLD, we really focus on those accommodations, and we show the students how those accommodations can be helpful to them in a job setting or a college or trade school or military setting after they leave, to make sure those accommodations are following them. And finally, the very last thing we talk about is the placement of your child. What educational setting will they receive their services? Different educational settings have different restrictions on them, and those restrictions just mean access to non-disabled peers. So where is my student going to learn best in correlation with he has as much time possible with peers that don't have disabilities? We learned a long time ago that students without disabilities learn really well with students with disabilities, and vice versa. We do that with peer modeling, and then it also shows our students without disability some diversity to be exposed to. So we talked a lot about the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, and we describe how the student is doing in different areas and how the student uses what he or she has learned throughout the day. Those annual goals we talked about, and those goals should remain the same. Those goals should not remain the same year after year. They should change and look differently. Those goals should also be SMART, which means they are very specific to the student. Um, we have great presentations on SMART IEP goals on our website. And this here talks about those benchmarks and short-term objectives. Accommodations, again, are what we add to the student's plan, not what we change. So this may be like testing done in a smaller group setting where it's quieter. It may be professional seating, like near the teacher or away from the door, not near a window. It could be using text to talk, or using typing instead of writing. So accommodations do not change with the student's learning. They just add to, they remove that barrier. Whereas a modification are things that we change. They're the way that we adjust with the student's learning, or we may adjust how we're testing the student. So my son, I mentioned before, has dysgraphia, and he really struggles with essay to write essays and write term papers. He has a brilliant, beyond brilliant mind. His intelligence is off the rail, but to try to tell you what he's learned from reading text is really hard for him. So instead, we've put up in place, instead of writing term papers or writing research papers, he does Canva presentations. And he's actually taught me a lot about how to use that technology. He's brilliant. And I wish I could show. He just did one on the Titanic, and he animated it. And it is so cool. And it shows exactly where the Titanic hit the iceberg and where it split and where one end went, all the things. So in that sense, we are changing. So this is, a reading or writing class, and he's not reading or writing. So we're changing what he's learning, and we're changing how he's being tested. So that's how we modify something.
Yeah, so I'll just go a little bit into more accommodations that are useful within the school setting for students with learning disabilities. So next slide. Looking at presentation, how is material presented in the classroom? And again, as a parent, you can always ask about whether these accommodations have been done or are being done currently. So next slide, one of those is use of audio. So if a student especially is struggling with reading ability, dyslexia, you can always provide text to speech, access to audio for textbooks, novels, assignments, and tests. And there are so many different websites and apps that can be utilized that provide that for them. And next one, it's also important to reduce visual clutter. So if we have a lot of information on a page, then that is challenging for students. So making sure that maybe the font is 12 points or larger, and you're giving enough room for students to write an answer or complete a problem. Okay, next slide. Also present instructions verbally. So a lot of our assignments have those written instructions, visual instructions, which is great. However, we sometimes need to pair that with verbal instructions so that our students have a better understanding of what is being asked of them in an assignment or in an activity. Next slide. Also simplifying. So we have a set of instructions. It's good to repeat those instructions, but also to simplify. So instead of maybe having 5 different steps a student must take within a classroom, and you can do this at home, instead of having a set of steps that the student has to take, maybe, cut that down, simplify those steps, simplify those directions. And then we can accommodate in the area of response. So how a student responds with their answer. Next slide. So allowing students to provide those verbal responses. So instead of having a written response, they can verbally either say that to another student, dictate to a teacher or another staff member in the classroom. And then using speech to text. So we have great technologies, like Abby was saying with assistive technology. We have great technology that's at our fingertips. You just have to find that or ask the right person to provide some examples of what to use. So speech to text is a great demonstration of that. All right, next accommodation grouping is timing. So this is a big area for students with specific learning disabilities. The next slide, allowing frequent breaks. So we have students with learning disabilities. It's a big mental load. They have a lot of cognitive load going on where they're thinking constantly. And so allowing them to take breaks and allowing them to have a brain break is very beneficial for them. And that way you can kind of decrease that frustration or overwhelmed feeling. Next slide. Extended time for tests and assignments. This is always a good accommodation to have within a student's IEP. If maybe you provide students 10 minutes to get an assignment done within the classroom or at home, maybe double that, provide students a little bit extra time to complete that. Next slide. And then providing a timeline for extended assignments. This allows them to maybe break up a longer assignment. If, for example, if it's a reading assignment or if it's a writing assignment, providing set timelines for them so that they can work toward those timelines, and it doesn't look so overwhelming altogether. It's broken up into parts. Okay, next slide. Reducing assignment length. So, sometimes we have math assignments that could be 20 problems. Could we reduce that with just still keeping the same concept or still keeping the same skill that they're working on, just reducing that assignment? And then the setting. Go ahead, next slide. So we can provide preferential seating, and this doesn't necessarily have to be in the front of the class. It's wherever, whatever area in the classroom meets the needs of the student. So sometimes that's away from distractions, which is the next slide. I know when I taught, the biggest distraction was probably the windows and the pencil sharpener. So making sure that students that are easily distractible are away from those parts. Okay. And then you can always administer tests in a smaller group setting. This allows students to take their time, not worrying about what the whole group is doing. We have students that are very self-conscious about working a little slower than other students in the classroom. So this gives them enough time to, try their best and not worry about being self-conscious. Okay. Then we use technology. So again, as we talked about, there's so much technology out in our world today. From starting with a calculator, which is the next slide, using multiplication charts. So again, reducing that cognitive load. And then assistive technology, there's a ton of assistive technology apps, there's devices, lots of different things. So, if you have questions specifically about what assistive technology, where to go for that, touch base with the teacher. There's usually a tech person in the school district. We have a great resource with the Illinois SLD support project with our tech person, very knowledgeable of things. So reach out. I'm sure someone has some great ideas about what to utilize with your kiddo.
Okay, back to me. So, like we talked about, you are going to have documentation of the progress towards the goals for your students. So, we talked about the timelines in which you'll receive that progress. If you're not receiving that progress, this warrants a letter to the district or to your special education coordinator. Very nice letter just saying, "Hey, I didn't receive the progress report along with the report card this time with my child's report card. Can you please provide that to me?" We talked about special training. This is super essential if your student needs assistive technology. Okay, so if your student needs the support, I remember one of the first students I worked with here needed to wear headphones while he worked because the written instructions were then fed into the headphones for him, so he could hear that, and they had set that up, but they didn't make sure that all staff knew that he needed to use that or how to put those instructions into the app he was using for the headphones. So he wasn't receiving that assistive technology or the accommodation across all platforms. So it's very important that all staff understand your students' assistive technology needs and that it's listed in that IEP. One of my biggest pet peeves is I go into an IEP meeting and I hear that my student's going to need the support of Bookshare, which is a assistive technology app that can help them read text. Okay, and I'll say, well, let's make sure we list that in the section, and someone will go, well, all students have access to a Chromebook. Well, that's great for all students. My student needs access to that Chromebook for a specific reason. Let's put that in the IEP. There's so many misconceptions that assistive technology is only there to support students with lack of communication or communication needs. And that's not true. We can use it for so many things. I think my daughter's assistive technology section in her IEP is about 9 paragraphs long. Okay, so we want to make sure that everything that she's using outside of school that's successful for her can be administered at school as well. Let's talk about least restricted environment, and you could do a whole presentation on a least restricted environment, but it basically breaks down to what educational setting my student will learn best in with integrating that time with non-disabled peers. Some of our students need a much more supported environment like a therapeutic day program or residential facility. That does not mean that we don't try to then incorporate back time with their non disabled peers. We may do that through extracurricular activities, we may do that through outside sports or outside community time. If the district is using that time and those extracurricular activities to achieve LRE, then we have to make sure that our students' accommodations are following them as well. Okay, so if your student needs the support of a one-on-one aide for whatever reason, make sure that's following him to the after-school club if he's going to it, or if your school sponsors your local Boy Scout organization, make sure those are following him across the platforms. Remember, an IEP should be written before a decision is made about placement. We are not talking about that until very, very last thing. Goals should be written to support the student's needs, and they should not be written to reflect the services available in that specific placement. During my ESP presentation, I totally bold this out. The student's needs determine placement, not district convenience, not lack of staff, not type of disability or severity of disability. We can't say that all students with dyslexia have to be taught in a self-contained classroom. We can't say that. We may come back and say it would be important for Johnny to learn his reading curriculum because we're using, just left my head, an embrace system. No. Anyway, we're using this specific type of curriculum that helps students with dyslexia, and 4 other students in that classroom are also using that reading curriculum. So we may say that that particular class is good for Johnny because the other peers in the classroom are all learning this type of curriculum. But that doesn't mean that Johnny can't go out to science to learn with his peers, or out to learn his math. We cannot base placement on the type of disability for our students, especially as they come into older age, when they come into transition service age. They need more time with their non-disabled peers. They need access to earn those credits, to earn those extracurricular points, to earn those, honor roll points, to apply for college, to apply for jobs. They need that access as well. Prior written notice doesn't mean technically before your IEP meeting. Okay, that's a little misconception. Prior written notice is it's the district's job to provide you with notice anytime something's going to change. So that might be that they want to evaluate your child differently than what they have been before, change a disability category, change an educational placement, change the way in which the child services are provided. And you can talk about these things at the IEP meeting. So you can actually not receive notice before and talk about them at the meeting. But at the end of the IEP meeting, you have 10 days before all these changes go into effect. That's your prior written notice. That's where you have the right as a parent to write back and say, I was not prepared to discuss this, or I don't think this was right, or I don't agree with this, and let's have another meeting to talk about ways we can do it differently and compromise. Um, this is, and then accordance with that draft as well, is a way a parent cannot feel blindsided when they come into an IEP meeting and feel that they are prepared. It's also okay. I just did a presentation with Laura Hart earlier today on understanding your procedural safeguards. It's absolutely okay in the middle of a meeting to say, I'm not prepared to make this decision. I don't feel comfortable. Let's stop this meeting and call it at another time. It's way better than to do that than to sit there and let your feelings come up and things get heated and hurt your relationships. It's okay to stop that meeting and reconvene at another time. So for more questions about prior written notice, please reach out to Family Matters and we can discuss your child's need or lack of prior written notice from the district. So this is an older handout that we have, but there's a little handout on understanding special education processes. The updated version is found in that Google Drive that I shared today. And Family Matters serves, I don't know why this little green thing's there. Family Matters serves 94 counties in the state outside of the Chicagoland area. You can reach us at any time by calling this number or emailing our website. We have a brand new, beautiful, spanking new website that we've been playing a lot with, and there's lots of great resources on there. If you live outside or inside of the Chicagoland area, your parent center is actually called Family Resource Center on Disabilities, and you can contact them on their brand new beautiful website along with their phone number there too. Okay. Go back a little bit here. Now we're going to have some time for some questions. Janet, do you have anything to finish up with before I stop the recording?
Yeah, so I will plug. So Illinois SLD Support Project has multiple things during the course of the year. So check our website for upcoming events that are free, free to staff, teachers, free to parents. across the board, but we do have an annual conference coming up in Springfield. It's in the Crown Plaza in March, I believe 18th and 19th. So we will have lots of different opportunities for parents to take part in some sessions regarding, possibly transition, gathering information about specific learning disabilities. So check our website out for more information and if you're interested in that.
And I believe Family Matters will have a presence at the annual conference, much like last year. I enjoyed myself very much there. I think that one of the best parts was the parent panel. We actually had a panel of parents that their students have specific learning disabilities. I had the privilege of sitting on that panel, and I think it was very rewarding. I've had so many professionals contact me and said, "Didn't you sit on the parent panel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I also presented there, but it's okay. I'm glad that you liked the parent panel." So that's actually a great. I'm hoping that's coming back this year. Didn't mean to push you on the spot for that one, Janet.
I will have to check into that.
Okay. All right. At this time, we're going to stop the recording and take some questions.